Thanks for clicking on this video. I really appreciate you being here. If you enjoy the story, consider subscribing and feel free to like the video or drop a comment below. It really helps the algorithm recommend these videos to you and to others who might enjoy them too. Either way, thanks for giving it a chance, and I hope it pulls you in. I do not love the night anymore. I do not think I will ever stop fearing it. My name is Mitchell Greer, and I was there when the lights went out in Carver City. I was there when we learned why humanity invented fire, and I was one of the few who survived until morning. It was a Thursday night in mid-January around 9:30. I was working late at my office on the 15th floor of the Kessler building, one of those glass and steel towers that define the downtown skyline. I was finishing up a quarterly report that should have been done 2 days ago, the kind of tedious work that keeps you chained to your desk long after everyone else has gone home. The office floor was mostly empty, just a few other late workers scattered across the cubicle farm, their screens glowing in the dimness like small campfires. I had just saved my document and was thinking about finally calling it a night when I looked up at the window and saw the city laid out before me. 2 million people living their lives out there, driving cars and watching television and eating dinner and doing all the ordinary things people do on a Thursday night. The skyline was beautiful, towers of light rising against the black sky, streetlights tracing the grid of roads below, the whole urban landscape glittering like something precious. Then the lights went out, not gradually, not flickering, not dying one by one. They went out all at once, like someone had flipped a switch, like the entire city had simply decided to stop existing. One moment I was looking at a sea of light. The next I was staring into absolute blackness. I watched it happen. Watched the darkness spread like a wave across the skyline, blocks going black in sequence, the glow dying in every direction until there was nothing left. The office lights went out. My computer screen went dark. The emergency lights in the hallway flickered on for maybe 2 seconds, then died as well. I was standing in complete darkness, 15 floors above a city that had just vanished. My first thought was that it was a blackout, a power failure, the kind of thing that happens sometimes during storms or heat waves. But there was no storm, and it was the middle of January, and blackouts do not kill battery-powered devices. I reached for my phone to use the flashlight and found that my phone was dead too. Completely dead, would not turn on, the screen as black as everything else. That was when I started to feel afraid. Then the radio crackled to life. There was an emergency radio mounted on the wall near the conference room, one of those battery-powered units that every office building has for emergencies. It had hung there for years, never used, never even tested as far as I knew. It should have been dead like everything else, but it crackled with static. And then the emergency broadcast tone sounded, that harsh drone that makes your spine straighten and your heart race, and then a voice spoke. "This is an emergency broadcast for all residents of Carver City and surrounding areas." The voice was flat, mechanical, the kind of synthesized speech that emergency systems use. But there was something underneath it, something that sounded almost like fear. "The lights have gone out. They will not come back on. Do not attempt to create artificial light. Do not use flashlights, candles, matches, or any other light source. They can see light now. Stay in darkness. Stay silent. Do not go outside." I stood frozen, listening, trying to understand. This is not a test. The lights kept them away. The lights are gone. They are coming. The broadcast repeated once, word for word, and then the radio went silent. Just dead air, then nothing at all. I stood in the darkness of my office, trying to process what I had just heard. They can see light now. The lights kept them away. They are coming. It sounded like the ravings of a madman, like something from a horror movie, not a real emergency broadcast. But the power was out across the entire city. My phone was dead, and somehow that radio had worked when nothing else did. I moved to the window, carefully, feeling my way through the dark. I pressed my face against the glass and looked down at the street 15 floors below. At first, I saw nothing, just blackness, the complete absence of light that I was already becoming accustomed to. But then something moved. I could not make out details, could not see what it was exactly. Just movement, a shape darker than the darkness around it, flowing down the street with a motion that was not quite walking, not quite crawling, something in between. It stopped under where a streetlight used to stand, as if confused by the absence of the light that should have been there. Then it moved on, and I realized it was not alone. There were more of them, dozens, maybe hundreds, moving through the streets of Carver City, flowing between the abandoned cars, passing the darkened buildings, searching for something. I pulled back from the window, my heart pounding, my breath coming fast and shallow. The broadcast had said not to go outside. Now I understood why. I needed to find the others. I knew I was not alone in the building. I had seen other people working late, had heard movement on other floors when I walked to the bathroom earlier. Someone else must have heard the broadcast, must be trying to figure out what to do. I made my way through the dark office, hands outstretched, moving slowly to avoid crashing into desks and chairs. The darkness was absolute, the kind of black you never experience in a modern city, the kind of black that makes you question whether you still have eyes at all. I found the hallway by memory, followed the wall to the stairwell, then heard voices coming from somewhere above. I climbed one floor, feeling my way up the stairs, and found 3 people huddled in a conference room. I could not see them, could only hear their whispers, could only sense their presence in the darkness. "Who is there?" a woman's voice asked, sharp with fear. "Mitchell Greer," I said. "From the 15th floor. I heard the broadcast." "We all heard it," another voice said, older, male. "What the hell is happening out there?" We introduced ourselves in whispers. Diana Marsh from accounting, a woman in her 40s, whose voice carried the controlled panic of someone trying to stay calm for everyone else's sake. Leonard Cole from IT, an older man, maybe 60, whose voice was surprisingly steady. And Kevin Sutter, an intern who had started just last month, whose voice shook so badly he could barely speak. We shared what we knew, which was almost nothing. The power was out everywhere. Nothing electronic worked except that one emergency radio. The broadcast had warned us not to make light and not to go outside. And there were things in the streets, things we had glimpsed through the windows, things that moved in ways nothing should move. Leonard was quiet for a long moment after we finished comparing notes. Then he spoke, and what he said changed everything. "My grandfather used to tell stories. he said. About the old dark. The time before cities, before electric lights, before humanity pushed back the night with fire and lamps and eventually electricity. He said there was a reason we invented all those lights. Not just for convenience, not just for safety from ordinary dangers. What do you mean? Diana asked. He said there were things that lived in the darkness, things that could not exist where light touched, things that humanity had been fighting since we first learned to make fire. We pushed them back, drove them into the deep places, the caves and the chasms and the forgotten corners of the world. But we never destroyed them. We just held them at bay. That is insane, Kevin said, his voice cracking. That is superstition. That is not real. The lights are out across the entire city, Leonard said quietly. Every electronic device is dead, and there are things moving in the streets that are not human. You tell me what is real. Kevin did not answer. My grandfather said the lights must never go out, Leonard continued. He said if they did, the old things would return. I thought he was just a crazy old man telling scary stories. I thought it was folklore, nonsense, the kind of thing people believed before we had science to explain the world. He paused, and in the darkness, I could hear him take a shaky breath. I do not think it was nonsense anymore. We sat in silence after that, trying to absorb what Leonard had said, trying to reconcile it with everything we thought we knew about the world. Outside, the darkness pressed against the windows, and somewhere in that darkness, things were hunting. Then Kevin stood up. This is ridiculous, he said. I am not going to sit here in the dark because of some old man's fairy tales. The power will come back on. It is just a blackout. They happen all the time. Kevin, wait, Diana said. But Kevin had already pulled out his phone. I heard him pressing buttons, heard his frustrated grunt when the screen would not light. My phone is dead, he said, but I have a flashlight in my bag. A real one, with batteries. Do not, Leonard said, his voice urgent. The broadcast said no light. Did you not hear it? They can see light now. I do not care what some creepy broadcast said. I need to see what is happening. I heard him rummaging in his bag, heard the click of a flashlight switch. Light blazed through the darkness, blinding after hours of black. Kevin swept the beam around the conference room, illuminating our faces, our fear, the ordinary office furniture that looked strange and threatening in the harsh white light. For a moment, nothing happened. We squinted in the brightness, adjusting to being able to see again. Then something hit the window. We were on the 16th floor, 16 stories above the street, and something hit the window from outside. Kevin screamed and spun toward the sound, the flashlight beam swinging wildly. I saw the window, saw cracks spreading across the glass, saw something dark pressed against the outside, something that should not have been able to reach us this high up. More impacts, more cracks. The glass was going to shatter. I lunged for Kevin, grabbed the flashlight, and switched it off. The impacts stopped. We stood in the darkness, breathing hard, listening. The cracks in the window were still there. I could hear the glass creaking, but whatever had been trying to get in was gone. It had lost us when the light went out. The broadcast was right, Diana whispered. They can see light. The light draws them. Kevin was sobbing now, soft broken sounds in the darkness. I think he understood now. I think we all did. "We need to move," Leonard said. "This window is compromised. If it breaks, they will get in. We need to get somewhere without windows, somewhere deep in the building." "The basement," I said. "The parking garage. It is all concrete down there, no windows." "That is 15 floors down in complete darkness. Do you have a better idea?" He did not. We formed a chain, holding hands like children, with me in the lead. I knew the building better than the others, had worked here for 5 years, had walked these halls thousands of times, but I had never walked them in darkness, had never realized how much I relied on sight to navigate even familiar spaces. Every turn felt uncertain, every doorway a potential trap. I moved slowly, one hand on the wall, counting doors and turns, navigating by memory and touch. The carpet under my feet helped me know when I was in a hallway versus an office. The change in air temperature told me when I passed an exterior wall. The sound of our footsteps echoed differently in open spaces versus narrow corridors. I learned to read the building with senses I had never really used before. The stairwell was the hardest part. Absolute blackness, nothing to see, each step a leap of faith. The handrail was cold under my palm, slightly gritty with dust that had accumulated over years of minimal use. Most people took the elevator. Most people would never take the elevator again. I felt for the edge of each stair with my foot before putting my weight on it, counted the steps between floors, called out warnings to the others behind me, 14 steps, then a landing, then 14 more steps, then a door. Repeat, repeat, repeat. Down and down and down, floor after floor, the darkness pressing in from all sides like something physical, like something alive. The air grew colder as we descended. The sounds changed, became more hollow, more echoey. The building creaked and groaned around us, settling noises that I had never noticed before, that had always been masked by the hum of ventilation and the buzz of fluorescent lights. Now every sound was audible, every creak and groan amplified by the silence. We were not alone in the stairwell. I heard movement above us, something descending from the higher floors. I heard movement below us too, something in the basement levels, something that had found its way inside. The building that had seemed so solid and safe was now a maze filled with things we could not see. Around the 8th floor, we heard something directly below us. A wet sound, a dragging sound, something moving up the stairs toward us. I froze, pressing against the wall, pulling the others close. Kevin panicked. I felt his hand rip away from mine, heard him crash through the stairwell door onto the 8th floor. He was running. I could hear his footsteps pounding across the floor, stumbling in the darkness, crashing into things he could not see. Then he screamed. It was a short scream, cut off suddenly, replaced by a sound I do not want to describe. A sound that told me Kevin was gone, that whatever had found him was not going to let him go. Diana started to move toward the door. Leonard grabbed her, held her back. "We cannot help him," Leonard whispered, his voice breaking. "We cannot help him without light, and light will kill us all." Diana was crying. I could hear her trying to muffle the sounds, and I understood. We had just listened to a young man die, and we had done nothing. We could do nothing. That was the worst part. We kept moving down. What else could we do? We passed the 8th floor door and tried not to think about what was on the other side. Down past the 7th, the 6th, the 5th, the sounds in the building were getting louder now, more frequent. The things had found their way inside, were spreading through the floors, searching for prey. Every step felt like it might be my last. Every moment in that darkness, I expected to feel something grab me, something cold and wrong touching my skin. But we kept moving, kept descending, kept holding on to each other, like that connection was the only thing keeping us alive. Maybe it was. We reached the basement level and felt our way into the parking garage. It was vast and dark, but it felt different from the stairwell. The air was stale and cold, smelling of concrete and car exhaust. No windows here, no way for things to look in, just solid walls all around. We found a maintenance closet and barricaded ourselves inside. It was small, maybe 8 feet by 8 feet, crowded with mops and buckets and cleaning supplies. But it had a solid door and no windows, and it felt safer than anywhere else in the building. We sat in the darkness and waited. Diana started talking after a while. Maybe just to fill the silence. Maybe because she needed to say something before it was too late. "My daughter is 8 years old," she said, her voice soft and tired. "Her name is Grace. She is at home with a babysitter on the other side of the city. I keep thinking about her, wondering if they heard the broadcast, wondering if they are staying in the dark, wondering if she is scared." She paused, and I heard her take a shaky breath. "I wonder if I'm ever going to see her again." I did not know what to say. I did not have family in the city, had moved here alone 5 years ago for the job. I had friends, acquaintances, people I cared about, but I had never felt more alone than I did in that moment, sitting in a closet in the dark, listening to a mother worry about a daughter she might never hold again. Leonard talked after that, about his grandfather, about the stories he had dismissed as nonsense. His grandfather had lived in a small town before rural electrification, before every home had electric lights. The old people there knew things, remembered things, passed down warnings that the young people ignored. Never let the fire go out, never walk in darkness, never let them see you. Leonard had thought his grandfather was losing his mind at the end, rambling about monsters and darkness and the old ways. Now he wished he had listened more carefully. Now he wished he had asked more questions. Now it was too late. Something moved outside the closet door. We all heard it. A sound in the parking garage. Something moving between the cars. Something searching. We held our breath, pressed against the walls, tried to make ourselves invisible. The sound came closer, closer, stopped right outside our door. A long moment of silence. I could feel Diana trembling beside me. I could hear Leonard's breath, slow and controlled, trying not to make a sound. I could hear my own heart pounding so loud I was sure whatever was outside could hear it too. Then the sound moved away, continuing its search, and we all started breathing again. We did not speak after that. There was nothing left to say. I do not know how long we sat there. Hours, certainly. The darkness was so complete that time lost meaning, became just an endless now of fear and waiting. I drifted in and out of something like sleep, exhausted beyond measure, but too terrified to truly rest. At some point, Diana stood up. "I cannot do this anymore," she said, her voice eerily calm. "My daughter is out there. She needs me. I cannot sit here and hide while she might be alone and scared." "Diana, no," Leonard said. "The streets are full of those things. You will never make it." "Maybe not, but I would rather die trying to reach her than sit here doing nothing. If she survives and I do not, at least she will know I tried." I heard her move toward the door, heard her hand on the handle. "Diana," I said, but I did not know how to finish. What could I say? That she was wrong to want to save her daughter? That her life mattered more than her child's? I could not say any of that because I did not believe it. "Take care of yourselves," Diana said. "If you make it out, if you find survivors, tell them there might be a little girl named Grace somewhere on Pine Street. Tell them her mother loved her very much." She opened the door and slipped out into the parking garage. Her footsteps faded into the darkness, and then there was silence. I never found out if she made it. Just me and Leonard now. Two strangers who had survived together, huddled in a maintenance closet, waiting for dawn. Leonard said we should try to leave too, try to get out of the building, find somewhere safer. I asked him where that might be, and he did not have an answer. Nowhere was safe anymore. The whole city was dark. The whole city was filled with those things, and we had no way to fight them. So we waited, and eventually, after what felt like forever, I noticed something. Light. Not much. Not enough to see by. Just a faint grey glow seeping under the door. Barely visible. Barely there at all. But it was light, and it meant dawn was coming. "Leonard," I whispered. "Look." He saw it too. We watched that thin line of grey light grow stronger, watched the darkness begin to retreat. The sun was rising. Whatever had come with the night, maybe it could not survive the day. We opened the door carefully and stepped out into the parking garage. Grey light filtered down the ramp from street level, dim and weak but real. For the first time in hours, I could see. I could see the concrete walls, the rows of cars, my own hands in front of my face. I could see Leonard standing beside me, an old man who looked like he had aged 20 years in a single night. The garage was empty. No bodies, no creatures, no signs of whatever had been hunting us. They were gone, retreated to wherever they went when the sun came up. We made our way up the ramp toward the street, moving slowly, not quite trusting that the nightmare was over. The light grew stronger as we climbed, shifting from grey to pale yellow, the color of a winter morning. We stepped outside, and I saw what had become of Carver City. Every light source in sight had been destroyed. Streetlights were shattered, their poles bent and twisted like they had been grabbed by giant hands and wrenched apart. Store windows were broken, the signs and displays inside demolished. Anything that might have glowed or illuminated reduced to rubble. Cars were overturned, their headlights smashed, their interiors gutted, batteries ripped out and thrown into the street. Anything that could have produced artificial light had been systematically, methodically destroyed. I saw a bus on its side, every window shattered, the destination sign above the windshield torn away. I saw a phone booth with the receiver dangling, the small light inside crushed. I saw a restaurant, with its neon sign in pieces on the sidewalk, the letters scattered like a broken word. Even the emergency exit signs above doors had been smashed, their red glow extinguished forever. The creatures had not just hunted, they had made sure the lights could never come back on. They had been thorough, patient, comprehensive in their destruction. Every source of artificial light in the city had been targeted and eliminated. This was not random violence. This was a plan executed with terrifying precision. Other survivors were emerging from buildings, from hiding places, from wherever they had spent the long night. They came out blinking and disoriented, looking around at the wreckage with expressions of stunned disbelief. I saw maybe 24 people in the blocks around us. Some were crying, some were calling out names, looking for loved ones who would never answer. Some just stood there, staring at nothing, their minds unable to process what had happened. 24 people, in a city of 2 million. I looked at the sky and felt my brief hope begin to fade. The sun was up, but it was dim, filtered, weaker than it should have been. A haze had settled over the city, over everything, blocking some of the light. Not enough to bring full darkness, not enough to let the creatures return, but enough to make the daylight feel fragile, temporary, like it might not last. Leonard saw it too. "The sun looks wrong," he said. "I know. If it gets darker, if the haze gets thicker, I know." We did not say anything else about it. We did not need to. The survivors gathered over the next few hours, sharing stories, comparing experiences. Everyone had heard the same broadcast, had survived by staying in the darkness, had lost people to the things that hunted them. A woman had watched her husband light a candle. A man had lost his entire family when his child turned on a nightlight. A teenager had survived alone in a bathroom for 8 hours, listening to her parents scream. The stories were all different, and they were all the same. No one talked about turning the lights back on. That option was gone. The power grid was destroyed, the infrastructure demolished, and even if we could restore it, the creatures would just come again. The broadcast had said the lights were gone permanently. I was beginning to understand what that meant. This was not a temporary crisis. This was the end of an era. Some people talked about leaving the city, heading for rural areas, finding places where they might survive. Others talked about fortifying buildings, creating safe rooms, stockpiling supplies for the long, dark nights ahead. I decided to leave. I could not stay in Carver City, could not walk these streets every day knowing what had happened here, could not watch the sun set every evening and wonder if tonight was the night the haze would grow too thick and the darkness would return for good. Leonard said he would come with me. We were strangers who had survived together, and that made us something like family now. The only family either of us had left. We started walking as the weak sun climbed higher, through streets filled with wreckage, past buildings with shattered windows, stepping over debris from a night of destruction. The city was quiet. The city was ruined. The city was no longer a place for human beings. I saw bodies as we walked. Not many, not enough to account for 2 million people. I did not know where the rest had gone, what the creatures had done with them. Maybe I did not want to know. We walked toward the edge of the city, toward the horizon, toward whatever came next. Other survivors moved in the same direction. Small groups and pairs and solitary figures, all leaving, all seeking somewhere safer. At the top of a hill, I stopped and looked back at the skyline of Carver City. It looked so different now, so dark, even in daylight. Every window black, every sign destroyed, every source of light systematically eliminated. The towers that had seemed so beautiful last night, blazing with light against the sky, were just dead monuments now. Tombstones for a civilization that had not known how fragile it was. I thought about all the people who had lived here, worked here, loved here. I thought about the lights that used to blaze from every building, making the city glow like a jewel in the darkness. Those lights were gone now. They would never come back. 10,000 years of human progress, of pushing back the dark, of building civilization in the spaces we carved from the night. And it had all ended in a single evening. Leonard stood beside me, looking at the same view, thinking his own thoughts. My grandfather was right, he said quietly. About all of it. The lights were never just lights. They were a wall, a barrier, the only thing keeping them out. And now the wall is down. Now the wall is down. I turned away from the city and looked toward the pale sun hanging weak and dim in the hazy sky. We had maybe 8 hours until nightfall. 8 hours to find somewhere safe, somewhere we could survive the dark. 8 hours before the creatures returned. And I wondered, as I started walking again, whether anywhere would ever be truly safe. Whether the darkness that had swallowed Carver City would eventually swallow everything. Whether humanity had pushed back the night for 10,000 years only to watch it return in a single night. I did not know the answers. I just kept walking, because walking was all I could do now. Walking, and hoping that somewhere out there was still enough light to keep the darkness at bay. Walking and watching the sun, and counting the hours until nightfall. Leonard walked beside me, and somewhere behind us, other survivors followed. The remnants of a city, the remnants of a world, all moving toward a future none of us could predict. The sun felt so weak on my face. The haze seemed thicker than it had been an hour ago. I tried not to think about what would happen if the sun was not enough. I tried not to think about what was waiting in the darkness, patient and hungry, ready to return. I just kept walking. And somewhere behind me, the dead city sat in silence, waiting for the night to come again.